Okay, Rob, it's time to get started with your watch. Let's get things taken apart here and see how everything looks. Alright, we're going to take some components off while we're in the case, just to make life a little bit easier. Quite a bit of lubrication here on your automatic winding components. Okay, let's go ahead and get your pushers out. I got solid plastic seals, which is not unexpected, of course. They need to be updated and upgraded. Alright, I want to check out your stem, mostly because it seems that it's a bit long. I'm not sure if that's... It's interesting because the seal is quite old, so I'm not sure if this... maybe I'm just being a little bit over cautious, but I just think it's a little bit long. But we're gonna take a closer look later. Let's get this underway. All right. Let's start with removing your movement. Reveals that lovely matte blue dial. Oh, they really got blue right. Seiko just did an amazing job. All right. Let's go ahead and get your stem back in place. Get your hands together. Do as much as I can to protect these components. Now I want to take a very close look at this hand here. See when it was put on and by whom, if we can get to that mystery. Alright, so let's take a look. Let's take a quick look. Yeah. Okay, so that is an aftermarket hand. You can tell simply by the shape of this part right here. Seiko had a tube and essentially a tube that looked like a T from the side that was attached directly to the hand. But this tube is just soldered onto the hand, which is indicative of aftermarket. Okay, well, not a big deal, but something we'll keep in mind. See if we can adjust things The unfortunate thing is that hands are keyed. The chronograph hand for these watches are keyed to the chronograph wheel, which means that they are a match set once they're put together, and there's no really adjusting that. Now you can see here your minute recording hand is original. It has that sort of T shape, and then the T fits onto the hand. Okay, so there's your dial, very nice. Let's see what year your dial says. That's the next challenge, is to look at originality with respect to the dial. Okay, so we have a 3-7, and your case back says 3-5, which is interesting. They're about 2 months apart, but it's usually the other direction. But that's okay. I'm not really too concerned about those sorts of details. It is an original, correct year dial, so that's very nice. Very good. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so now we start taking things apart. Alrighty. Let's start with your components here. Move your balance wheel assembly. There we go. Set that aside. Let's take all the power out of your mainspring here. Now we can take off your bridge for your pallet fork. Here's your pallet fork assembly. Clean that. Make sure it's in good shape. Okay, so now we're going to take off your chronograph bridge and reveal all the components that operate your chronograph. Yeah, they lie below this bridge. Operating levers, springs, wheels, all sorts of good stuff. Okay, looks pretty good. Screw go rogue here. One moment. There we go. Okay, so now this is the heart of the chronograph. So we've got an intermediate wheel, which on the B movements is a separate wheel that's not staked to that bridge we just took off. There's your chronograph minute recording wheel. And now we take your screws down. Put some finger cuts on here just as a means to keep my fingers off of things. We are going to wash components, but it's always good practice to touch as little as possible. Okay, is one of your levers. This is a very interesting spring setup here. These come in a couple different varieties, these hammer springs. This one is one of the ones that has this interesting crook within it. It's kind of nice to see, actually. It's fun to see all the different styles. That one is definitely unique. I like that. Okay, so with that taken off, we can take your hammer off. That's the reset component of your chronograph wheels. And we're going to open up your chronograph operating levers. That takes your chronograph from an on-off kind of state. Engages the clutch of the chronograph wheel. Okay. Here's one. Here's the other. Okay. Now what we have here is the column wheel, or your wheel that engages the different functions on off of your chronograph. Take that off. Associated with it a small but important component. That's that space bushing. There's this small plate that covers your jewel and your bushing for your escape wheel and your third wheel. It's a jewel on the escape and a bushing on the third. Okay, now your ratchet wheel comes off. This retains the power for your mainspring. Goes in there. And this is your click spring, which holds onto the ratchet wheel to make sure the power stays in place. Okay. Now we can take this is your bridge that contains all those components, and also is the bridge for your train of wheels, except for your chronograph wheel, which is actually held in place by the chronograph bridge that's above from this point right in the center. Now what we're going to replace here is this bushing right here. That is the upper mainspring arbor port bushing. You can see it's quite loose. So we'll make that a jewel. Got quite a bit of lubrication here from Keyless Works. Problem with too much lubrication is it can find its way into components of the movement where it's not supposed to be. It doesn't stay put, unfortunately. So it's really a balancing act of the right amount of lubrication for the position that you give it. Let me actually take some of that lubrication off my tweezers. All right, so this is the heart of your chronograph. This is your chronograph wheel. Just check to make sure it's got good resistance. Actually, it doesn't have great resistance, unfortunately. All right, we're going to have to take a very close look at your clutch. I'm not convinced that's as healthy as it should be. They do fail, unfortunately. And there's your mainspring barrel. And there's your lower mainspring arbor port. And we're going to make a jeweled setting. And there's your last piece. Now this is held in place by your cannon pinion, which we're going to get to once we get through all the components on the other side here. All right, let's get your calendar side broken down. Get your C-clip. Your unidirectional C-clip only goes on in one way. That's chamfered side down. There's your English-Spanish day wheel. Put that aside. Okay. Here's your ubiquitous cover plate. Lots of different 6000 series movements use this style. This is what keeps your date wheel in place. Okay. Now let's remove these components. It's part of your date change. There's your hour wheel, your intermediate wheel. There we go. All right, your quick date lever. Cat pinion. And your center wheel. Right. Your minute wheel. All right, intermediate wheel, which also goes in one direction. Let's take off your lower die shock. There's your cap jewel and your die shock jewel itself. Alright, last part is the keyless works, which is very simple on these. Just a couple of screws and a couple of pre-stamped plates. Of course, your winding pinion. Your yoke and spring all in one piece. And that is that. Stem back out. And that's it. Alright, that's the full teardown of your 6139. We're going to go ahead and get to work on jeweling this. I have to look very closely at your chronograph wheel. I'm very nervous, in fact, that your clutches have, in a sense, failed. There should be some resistance here. They should move together. It's borderline. It's still together. It's still intact. We can still use it. But I'm a bit nervous about its longevity. Okay, we'll be in touch. Okay, so that's it. We'll get it cleaned up and we'll be back. Okay, Rob, it's time to get started with reassembly here. So we're going to go ahead and begin building out your train of wheels. So that means we're going to have to start with lubrication, as always. Before we get started, really, I'd like to point out some important things. One is right here. This is your brand new lower mainspring arbor port jewel, which should take care of any of the issues that you were having with amplitude and whatnot. And this is your upper mainspring arbor port jewel. Those are a match set, so we'll see that one come back in a moment as we get things put together. Okay, so start off with some nice fresh lubrication on these jewels. And we begin with your center wheel here. I like to check all your gear train for any foreign things that may have dust or anything that might have settled on. Okay. Okay. Okay, center wheel cock in place, and its retaining screw, single screw. Bridges have 2. This has 1. All right, so now here's your cleaned and reassembled mainspring. So we're going to lubricate that with a little 8201. Some natural grease here. Make sure that's in good shape. Well, that's strange. Where's my oiler? I misplaced my oiler somehow. Where did it go? Huh. Okay. Got your arbor installed, so let's go ahead and put a few drops of grease here, or oil, lubricant, to lubricate your mainspring just to be sure that it's proper and ready to go. And then we add your lid here. Okay, and then we make sure that's popped on and we are ready to go. Looks good. All right, now let's clean off your barrel, make sure everything is perfectly clean and ready to go. And there we have it. All right, let's add some lubrication here while we're in here. Okay. Now, the rest of your train of wheels have to go in place. Make sure there's nothing, no dust or fuzz or anything here. You always take a very close look. These, with chronographs especially, they have so many pieces that have to be put together on top of the train that if you have to go back and actually clear a piece of dust or fuzz out of the train, then that's a real bummer. All right, let's go ahead while we're here. Let's get your escape wheel closely examined. And this one's they're all, of course, important, but this one's particularly important. Make sure that it's absolutely sterile, which is good. all-important chronograph wheel, which I fear has lost a bit of its tightness. Unfortunately, I'm not certain as to how high of confidence I have in your chronograph wheel itself. And unfortunately, there's just nothing that can be done about it. It is what it is, and it will have to be the best it can possibly be for your watch. There's not a whole lot that we can do because you can't get a replacement. Sorry for the noise. It's always crazy. It's going to be barking in a moment. Excuse me for a second. There may just be barking. There's nothing I can do about it. You got one dog that barks at whatever he can hear, and then another dog that barks at him for barking. So it's always a bit of a symphony. Okay. Excuse me for a second. Okay. I think the barking has ended. All right, that looks pretty good. Right. Okay, so now we slowly add screws and make sure everybody's still happy. Not tightening anything other than contact, and then we turn the components. Still good. All right. So that's what I wanted to see. And now we can lubricate your components here. Right. Good. This cover goes over top of your jewel and your bearing, and then also acts as a bushing for the intermediate wheel that runs your chronograph minute recording hand. So it's dual purpose. There we go. Okay. Now we can put on your click spring. Acts with your ratchet wheel to keep the power in the mainspring so it doesn't turn. Your ratchet wheel goes next. sign. Things want to turn, which is always important to see. That's good. Unfortunately, it's hard to check the train of the chronograph because you need the upper bridge in order to actually lock the center wheel, chronograph wheel in place. Okay, so now what we can do is build out your components of your chronograph operating levers and your crown wheel. So we need your bushing first. Okay. Where is your bushing? It's here. There you are. Sometimes it's so small it just gets covered by the smallest things. All the parts together. They are part of my process is segregating parts by region of the movement so I can be more efficient in my build. And the small parts sometimes get mixed with the slightly larger parts, and those then cover them up. So you gotta turn over some leaves, if you will. Okay. So, operating lever on this side. Movement wants to be alive. It's very anxious. Okay. So that's good. Let's go ahead and actually get your chronograph in its other operating position. There we go. That lever in its open state. Now I want to add a little bit of lubricant between the levers, which is because those take quite a shock, turns out. And we put some lubrication here on your hammer lever. And also lubrication here. Right. Make sure everybody's nice and lubricated and happy. There we go. Okay. Alright, so next we have to install some screws. 2 screws for your operating levers. This is a screw with a offset, which goes here. And then another screw that holds down your second operating lever. Right here. Okay, good. Right. Now we can put your springs in place. So this is your spring that holds your levers out. And now you can put in your hammer, which is an important component function of your chronograph. So this is what resets your hands of your chronograph. And it gets a very special spring. Here's having this really interesting bend to it. Some of them are just a straight shaft here, but yours has a sort of crook in it to make it fit a little more efficiently. Something I guess Seiko learned as they went along. This is a later style watch, so it's got this extra interesting hook. Okay, so now your minute recording wheel goes in place. A little bit on that shaft. Down it goes. And your intermediate wheel, which of course gets no lubrication whatsoever. That one is supposed to be not lubricated. Okay. Alright, that's your chronograph built out. Now comes the chronograph bridge. Alright, this gets its own coupling of different lubricants. This is your return spring. This is what helps you reset. Right. A couple things you gotta get aligned here. Bridge has to come down and in contact with these wheels, with your chronograph wheel. Ensure that everybody's happy and well aligned. That looks pretty good. Okay, excellent. Go ahead and get a screw in place. Yep, that screw loves to fall in that hole. They made it perfectly sized so the head of that screw would go exactly right in there. When I reconstruct these things, I tend to drop it right in that hole. You'd think I'd learned by now how to hold the screw differently, but I don't. It always takes twice. Okay, let's take a quick look, make sure everybody's on their seats the way they should be. It looks good to me. Everything's freewheeling, so that's always good. And check for function here. Yeah. Okay. Can never be too sure about these sorts of things. All right, once this is on, I'm going to flip your movement, put your cannon pinion on, and lubricate the rest of your jewels, and also put in place your calendar side die shock setting, which holds your balance, part of your escapement. Okay, but at this point we can actually run some power through the movement. Check for function. Okay, it seems to be working. All right, so let's lubricate your upper jewel here. All right, let's go ahead and flip it over, give it a movement holder. And there we go. Now, okay, 2 jewels on this side. Go ahead and put your cannon pinion in. That gets lubrication, of course. That's a sliding slip mechanism that allows you to set the time and also transmit power from the train side to the calendar side. So that slips right on here and then pops into place. There we go. Okay. All right, that's nice and secure. Let's go ahead and get your jewels in place. Use a special oiler for this that goes inside of this jewel and applies the proper amount of oil. Okay, let's see how that did. Alright, let's try that one more time. Sometimes it doesn't reach down to the cap. Gotta be careful here. Let's take a close look and be 100%. That looks good. Okay, let's get this jewel in place. Now we need to fix your springs for your die shocks, or at least your bottom die shock for now. When we put your balance in place, we'll do the other die shock. Okay, that's good. That's your calendar side done to the point where we want, and then we have to flip back over here and go back to your train side. All right, so the next thing we have to do is lubricate your pallet fork. So that's a small amount of lubricant that helps keep your escapement running and running without much friction. Okay. Right, there we go. Okay. Go ahead and get that in place. And now the bridge that holds it. It's another one of those situations where you have to be very careful about the way you tighten down screws, because that pallet fork can oftentimes be misaligned, and then you don't know if it's really in the right place. So put a little power in to your mainspring. Give it a flick. Yep. And it did what it was supposed to do. So that tells me that it's properly installed. Okay. So put in your second screw into your bridge and nip that down. And now we can go ahead and put power in. And that's perfect. Okay. So next is the fun part. Now we get to watch the movement move. Take a look at your hairspring here and your assembly. And we drop that in and hope for the best. And very carefully, looky there. We got movement. That's good. That's where we want to start. Okay, so right now you got no screws in place and no jewel holding the upper part of your balance. Now this isn't doing any damage, of course, but it's a situation where the balance is not as secure. But as soon as we put your lubricated cap jewel and die shock setting, we will be rock solid and ready to see how we did. Let's go ahead and get that lubricated. Just like the other. Get our fancy oiler here. Make sure there's nothing in the way. Okay, good. Let's check our work. It's always a good sign when surface tension is on your side and holding that jewel in place. That looks perfect. So now you drop this on top of the balance, holds that pivot secure, and you grab your spring. Goes in place, just like so. Put that in its proper setting, and oops, there we go. Sorry to be in the way here, but I've got to be able to see this thing go into place. It's a whoop. Sometimes they pop off. All right, no bother, no problem. It's easy. Let me find that here. All right, let's see what we got here. There we go. All right, let's put that back in place. Come on, back where you belong. Okay, one more time. There we go. Now we're set. They're real easy to take off. They're a little bit harder to put in, but not too much. Just gotta work it a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that's your movement running. And we're ready to go. Let's see what we got. Okay, get some things out of the way here. Well, signal looks clean, that's for sure. Looking good so far. Move some of my work materials out of the way here. We can get adjusting. All right, that looks pretty good. Now we are in, let's go ahead and go in chronograph on. Okay, so losing a little bit of time and got a little bit of beat error, but we're gonna work that out. So let's go ahead and see what we got. We always have to make a choice about which direction to go. That was too much. Pretty clear that was way too much adjustment. Okay. Well, the numbers so far are amazing. If we can get all this beat error taken out that I just introduced, we'll be in good shape. Whoop. I think we lost our... There we go. Okay. So, where are we? 2.5 milliseconds. Let's get that to 0. What do you say? Which way am I going? 1.9. Okay, that's the right direction. Okay. That's looking pretty good. All right, 0.1. That's kind of where we want to be. Let's get some of that rate taken out. Effectively lengthening the hairspring. Okay. Well, it's not much more to do. We're gonna watch this and see how we're doing. I mean, shoot, we're in the 230s already. This is good. This is really good. I'm really happy. Let's bring the rate down just a touch. See if we can get that fine-tuned just a bit. It's gonna move around just a little bit as lubricants make their way around. But that signal is super straight. I'm really happy with that. Kind of dial this in a little bit. See if we can get it close to 0, 0. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, well, as a strong runner, I'm impressed. No fuss, no drama. That's where we want to be. Okay. All right, Rob, I'm going to let this run in overnight and let all the lubrication sort of work its way around through all the pivots and just get everything settled in. It's going to fluctuate a little bit, but I think we're going to be in really good shape here. This is a really strong looking movement. I'm really happy so far. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is good. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, Rob. Well, we're back after taking a little moment to let things run in, and I'm pretty happy with where we are. Numbers look clean and good. I'm going to start now with the calendar side so we can get your dial and hands on and get your watch finished. So now it's assembly of calendar works. Okay. Again, we are here to lubricate and reassemble. So let's start with lubrication. Alright, let's get your keyless works put together here. That means making sure all these surfaces are properly lubricated. And get your yoke installed. Okay. All right. Good. Mm-hmm. Now. Okay, looks good. Nice simple keyless works for 6139. Such a straightforward piece of engineering. All right, let's go ahead and get your minute wheel in place. Get its bridge plate installed. This one has two screws, a taper screw and a cheese head. and date advance here. Okay. Falcon goes in place. Good. Okay. Get your intermediate wheel. Go ahead and put your wheel after some lubrication on your cannon pinion. Okay, now tie everything together with one very important wheel. Oops. Okay. Excellent. Okay, now we have to put on your quick date components. Lubricate all these pivot points here that are under a lot of stress. Some heavy duty lubricant. Make sure this is well lubricated, ready to go. And there we go. And your correcting jumper goes in there. And that gets a bit of lubrication on its end to help your date advance. All right, now we can get your date wheel. There we go. And now for your retaining plate. Come on. Sometimes you have to push on your quick date in order to get this plate in. Just want to be careful. You never want it to not be flat. Okay, so let's put a single screw in, and then put your crown in place, actually, crown and stem, and give a little push. And there it is. Okay, now we can install some screws. One last screw. Okay. Let's check for function here. That looks good. That looks good. All right, let's go ahead and put your day ring in place. There we go. And it gets a C-clip. Faces chamfered side down. Good. All right, let's check out how everything works. Looks good to me. And let's go through the standard date changeover. Make sure that works fine. And that should turn over in about a few more turns. We should get the date first and then the day. Good. Okay. Excellent. All right. So that's your calendar side. Now we advance to dial and hands and start with the finishing of the watch. Looks good. All right. I'll be back. Put your dial and hands on and we'll be close to finish. Okay, Rob. Well, we've gotten to the point now where we're ready to put the final components onto your movement here. I've got your movement back in your case, which means your dial and hands are on and ready for you to see. So let's finish up with some lubrication. As always, we gotta lubricate things. So we put your automatic winding components on. Now for your two special screws that are uniquely sized for this position, oddly enough. They have a smaller diameter and different thread pitch than those for your bridge that holds your pallet fork, but they have the same exact screw head size, so they're easily confused, and so you got to take care to make sure that they are kept separate while you're doing your cleaning, so you don't have to second guess yourself while you're doing your reassembly. All right, let's get some of that extra lubrication out of the way. Don't want excess floating around your movement. Okay, so here's your winding weight. Final screw. And with that, movement finished. Here's your case back with your new seal. All right. So now let's go ahead and take a nice look at your movement here, your watch all together. Okay. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at where we are. All right, Rob. So hopefully the first thing you notice is that I was able to put your sweep much, much closer to 12 o'clock. And so I have a little way of modifying these and ensuring that we are in a reset condition when we put the hand back on. So now if you go through the process of resetting, you see that it goes very close to midnight. And it's really close. It's maybe a 1/10 of a second off, but it's much closer than it was, if you remember. Okay, so here's what we did. Serviced your movement. It's running great. It's really a nice running movement. I have to say, I'm very impressed with this particular watch. It's really quite good. There are some things I didn't change and some things I did. So overall, I modified the tube on your sweep to make sure that it was closer to midnight. I didn't go in and change anything about your stem and your crown. The reason is that somebody put this in at some point in the watch's life, and they fixed it in place with some sort of adhesive that I don't know anything about. And so I'm hesitant to go in and try and get this crown off with heat or I just, a broken stem, broken crown, that's an investment. That's not something I want to potentially inflict on you if I break it. And it's just not worth it. It's sealed, even in the stem out position, it's sealed. So I'm not going to worry about that. You've got new seals on your pushers, new seal on your crown, new seal on your case back. You've got your original seal under your crystal here, which is new and in great shape. So I left that as is. Everything else functions exactly as it should. Your gear interacts with your rotating ring just fine. All the functions of your time and date changeover are as they should be, clicking over at midnight. Your quick date, of course, sets perfectly, so that's as it should be. Your sweep and your minute recording, they both interact really well. Everything is just as it should be. It's a really nice watch. I'm super happy. If you like the orange hand, I say keep it. You could always buy another aftermarket. You're already in the aftermarket world. If you want to change it at some point to a red, they don't quite get the color right. So at this point, it's either you paint the hand or you buy another one. But frankly, I think it looks really cool. I mean, I'm perhaps biased, but I think it looks neat. And plus, now it's very close to midnight, and it's nice. It looks symmetric and good. So I'm really happy with the outcome. I hope you are too, and I'll be in touch, and we'll get settled up. Thanks a lot.